Welcome, English 1102 friends. This is a video covering a couple of the nature and settings poems. This video is going to cover In the Basement of the Goodwill Store by Ted Kooser and Grief Calls Us to the Things of This World by Sherman Alexie. Ted Kooser has been the National Poet Laureate of the United States, the highest honor you can get as a poet in this country. And Sherman Alexie, if you don't know him, he is a Native American from the Pacific Northwest. He has a couple of famous books about growing up on a Native American reservation but going to a white school. His most famous book is called The Lone Ranger and Tonto Fistfight in Heaven, but he has a couple of other books that he's famous for. He's still alive and writing. And the reason I put these two poems together is that they are both really about perspective and perception. They're about seeing things through certain eyes and having a certain perspective on the place you're in and how you react to it. We'll start with In the Basement of the Goodwill Store, which is a little bit of a sillier, funnier poem. Grief Calls Us to the Things of This World is obviously, as the title suggests, it's about grief, it's about sadness. In the Basement of the Goodwill Store, if you've ever been in a Goodwill store, this poem really captures what it's like to be in a Goodwill store, and there's just stuff scattered sort of willy-nilly everywhere. There's things scattered around that don't really go together, but it's just, you know, stuff people have donated to the Goodwill store or whatever, and it's all sort of packed and stacked together. In musty light, in the thin brown air of damp carpet, doll heads and rust, there you're starting to get just random stuff. Beneath long rows of sharp footfalls like nails in a lid. An old man, and this guy becomes important, an old man stands trying on glasses. There's the perspective, how you see things. You're already getting that imagery in here. Lifting each pair from the box like a glittering fish and holding it up to the light of a dirty bulb. Near him, a heap of enamel pans as wide as skulls loom in the catacomb shadows, more just random stuff. And old toilets with dry red throats cough up bouquets of curtain rods. So again, you just got like an old toilet. Somebody's put some curtain rods in it because that's, you know, where they could fit, where they could go. You've seen him. We're back to the old man trying on glasses. You've seen him somewhere before. He's wearing the green leisure suit you threw out with the garbage and the Christmas tie you hated. So now we're getting all the clothes at the Goodwill store, you know, stuff people got rid of, stuff people hated. The ventilated wingtip shoes you found in your father's closet and wore as a joke. And the glasses which finally fit him, through which he looks to see you looking back. And so now the old man is revealed, and it's you. It's this sort of, you know, one day you'll be this old man who just has all these things that people gave you and stuff like that. The glasses which finally fit him, through which he looks to see you looking back. Two mirrors which flash and glance are those through which one day you too will look down over the years. When you have grown old and thin and no longer particular, there it is, the no longer particular, you know. When you're older, you just don't care what's in style anymore, and you're just like, you wear the same clothes that you've had for years, anything that hasn't worn out, you know, Christmas ties that people gave you that were ugly but had sentimental value, shoes that you just hung on to even if they were ugly, like those wingtip shoes. And the things you once thought you were rid of forever have taken you back in their arms. And it's this sort of, again, this sentimental connection to things that just stuck around and stayed in your closet and you never quite get rid of, and then you just end up wearing them. And so it's what this poem becomes about is the sort of perspective of aging and getting older, and, you know, no longer particular is really what I've always taken to be the most important line in this poem, because as you get older, you just care less about style and things like that, and you're just like, oh, those shoes are fine, I'll wear them, who cares? And so you are just fine wearing, you know, stuff from Goodwill or whatever. Grief calls us to the things of this world. So the Goodwill store is this, the setting of the Goodwill store is this very particular space of all these sort of leftover things that nobody else wanted. Grief calls us to the things of this world has another very particular setting. In this case, it's a hotel room. The poem starts in a hotel room with the speaker in the poem deciding to call his dad. you get a quote from another poem, The Morning Air is All Awash with Angels, from a poem called Love Calls Us to the Things of This World. And Love Calls Us to the Things of This World by Richard Wilbur is this poem about how love is what makes us feel like love is what makes life worth living. And it's in the moments of little love. This poem is about how grief is this sort of intense feeling that sort of happens in unexpected moments. The eyes open to a blue telephone in the bathroom of this 5-star hotel. For us, this setting's a little bit foreign because we have cell phones now, so that hotels don't put telephones in the room. But part of what is happening here is this is a 5-star hotel, a really nice hotel. In fact, it's so nice that it has a telephone even in the bathroom in case you are important and need to call somebody. And so the speaker, I wonder who I should call. Who do you call when you're in the bathroom? A plumber, proctologist, urologist, or a priest? He's making a joke about the kinds of people you might need to call in the bathroom. You might need to call a plumber, a proctologist to help you with what you're doing in the bathroom. Same with a urologist. Who is blessed among us and most deserves the first call? I choose my father because he's astounded by bathroom telephones. And so what happens is he decides he's going to call his dad and just say, hey, guess where I'm calling? You're not going to believe where I'm calling you from, this hotel bathroom. And so he's just going to call his dad because he knows his dad will think it's funny. I dial home. My mother answers. Hey, Ma, I say, can I talk to Papa? She gasps. And then I remember that my father has been dead for nearly a year. And this is one of those moments in this poem. Often when I teach this poem, some students are like, if your dad died, you could never forget it. The truth is that, you get excited in moments and forget that people are gone. You forget, just in the excitement of a moment or the excitement of a memory or something like that, you forget that people are gone, which is what happened to the speaker here. He was just thinking about how funny his dad would think this is, and in the excitement of that moment, he forgot. And then he's reminded, and when he calls his mom and the mom gasps, he's like, oh yes, now I remember. She gasps, and then I remember that my father has been dead for nearly a year. Shit, Mom, I say, I forgot he's dead. I'm sorry. How did I forget? And the mom doesn't say, God, what a bad son you are. How could you forget that your dad's dead? She responds in the exact same, she responds with a similar experience of her own. She says, it's okay, she says. I made him a cup of instant coffee this morning and left it on the table like I have for 27 years. And so what the mom does is say, look, it's just the force of habit. You call your dad and tell him something funny and he'd laugh. And just like I would make him coffee every morning. It's just this sort of habit of being that's hard to break after all these years. And I didn't realize my mistake until this afternoon. My mother laughs at the angels who wait for us to pause during the most ordinary of days. And this is where this poem takes this turn into this much more sort of metaphorical angel territory. During the most ordinary of days, and sing our praise to forgetfulness before they slap our souls with their cold wings. And so it's almost like what happens here is, the memory is this sort of angel, and for the moment that you forget, the person is alive again, but then you get slapped by the cold wings of the reality that they're gone. Those angels burden and unbalance us. Those angels ride us piggyback. Those angels forever falling snare us and haul us, prey and praying into dust. And so what you get at the in the second half of this poem is this sort of idea that angels, what the angels are in this poem is the sort of force of memory, the power of memory, and somebody that you loved, like your dad or your mom or something like that, is still alive inside you. But it's also this sort of burden that burden and unbalance us and ride us piggyback. And so this sort of, that memory, it is wonderful, to think of your dad and or whoever is gone. But it's also this sort of burden that you have to carry, the memory of this person who is gone. And that's a weight. And sometimes, like what happens in this, it can knock you off balance, just like the mom gasping or the son, being suddenly then having to remember that his dad is gone. And so it is this counterbalance of memory where sometimes, it's nice to remember that person, but it also is this sort of grief sometimes too, like the grief that the narrator gets when he remembers that the dad is gone. So both of these poems are about this sort of perspective of things and perspective, especially of like things that happen as you get older and how you feel differently about things. In the basement of the Goodwill store, grief calls us to the things of this world, both connected by settings too. You know, you get the Goodwill store, you get the hotel room as this sort of very specific, concrete jumping off point that these poems both jump off of. I hope that helps you understand both of them. And if you have questions about either of these poems or either of these poets, just be in touch. Thanks, everybody.